Auditions for Takeover promo video, take one.
Hey everybody, I'm Thaddeus. I'm one of the breakaway directors here at Kensington.
Yeah, some people call me Caffeine Carl, but my real friends, they call me Monster, because I'm a rock star. Bang!
In case you didn't know, Breakaway is our awesome ministry program designed specifically for middle school students.
Breakaway? More like break a leg. I can clock one of these things over 100 miles an hour.
I'm here to tell you about our annual all-night event called Takeover. Takeover starts Friday night, March 6th, and it doesn't stop until the next morning.
Don't need to wake up if you never go to sleep.
We start the night with an awesome service with over 500 middle school students all together. Then we head off to our great destinations. This year, we're going back to Dave & Buster's and the Legacy Center.
We're gonna spray paint flames on the buses.
At Dave & Buster's, we have access to unlimited video games, and to refuel from all the fun, we have a taco bar.
You guys have any Baja Blast?
At the Legacy Center, we have a trampoline park, go-karts, arcade, virtual reality, bowling, basically anything you could ever want to have. Online registration is now open.
I just registered in less than 8 seconds. Booyah!
Hey, this has been awesome. Thanks for this opportunity. Just out of curiosity, who else auditioned?
Some guy named Caffeine Carl or something?
Oh, no, not Caffeine Carl. Risk management specifically said he's not supposed to be involved in this. He's not even supposed to be at Takeover.
Oh, you know Caffeine Carl's coming to take over, and so are you. Where's my dirt bag?
All right, well, hello, you guys. Hey. So Takeover is such an awesome event. I know when I was in middle school in Breakaway, that was one of my favorite things, because when else do you get to stay up all night and run around the city with your friends and your youth pastor? Seriously, it is so much fun. If you have a middle schooler that you think would enjoy this event, you guys can sign up online, or if you have questions, our student ministries team would love to talk to you out at the Great Room after service. Well, you guys have joined us for the final week of our Mosaic series. And Mosaic is a beautiful piece of art made up of broken, tiny pieces of either glass or stone. And we are comparing that to families and how there are different types of families made up of different unique people, but we believe that families can be beautiful. So we've kind of just been talking about how to be intentional and how to really care for those kinds of relationships. Well, my name is Faith, and I am our Kaleo Kids intern here at Kensington this year. And we just opened up the application for our 2021 year internship. So this is a 10-month program all about development. So spiritual development, personal, emotional. There's a whole group of people just willing to help you grow as a person throughout the 10 months. I'm about halfway through the internship, and for me, one of my favorite things has just been the community that I've gotten through this. I literally have like 25 new best friends. It's seriously so awesome. I cannot say enough great things. So if you have questions, we do have a table outside in the lobby. You guys can come ask us questions after service, or to begin the application process, you can go to kensingtonchurch.org/intern, and we can get that rolling. Well, I know Valentine's Day may have already passed, but we have another opportunity for you guys. We have our date night. So this is a chance for couples to maybe get away from the kids and just have a fun night with other couples. There's music, there's food, just time to hang out in community. But we also have a message prepared for you guys to help equip you for being intentional in your relationship. And lastly, I just want to remind you guys of our midweek. It's this Wednesday here at our own CT campus. Yes. So as you guys know, it's an awesome message. There's more worship than we typically have on a Sunday, so it's a super awesome way to just re-energize yourself to finish off the week strong. We would love to come worship with you guys at 7 o'clock here at CT. And so if you guys have any questions or want more information on anything that I've mentioned, you guys can head on out to the hub in the center of the lobby. And if it's your first time, we would love to meet you, and we have a free gift for you out there also. So if you guys could all go ahead and stand up and say hi to the people around you, and then crunch in towards the center.
in the early rush of morning, trying to get the kids to school. One's hanging on my shirt tail, the other's locked up in a room, and I'm yelling up the stairs, stop worrying about your hair, you look fine. And they're fighting in the backseat, and I'm playing referee. Now someone's gotta go the moment that we leave. Now everybody's late. I swear I can't wait till they grow up. Then they do, that's how it is. It's just quiet in the morning. Can't believe how much you miss all they do and all they did. Just dreams they dream of to come true, and they do. Now the youngest is starting college. She'll be leaving in the fall. And Brianna's latest boyfriend called and asked if we could talk. I got the impression he's about to pop the question any day. I look over at their picture sitting in their frames. I see them as babies, guessing that'll never change. You pray all your life, someday they'll find happiness. Then they do, that's how it is. It's just quiet in the morning. Can't believe how much you miss all they do and all they did. You want all the dreams they dream of to come true, and they do. No more Monday PTA, no carpools or soccer games. Your work is done. You got time, that's all your own. You've been waiting for so long. Well, those days to come, and they do. How it is. It's just quiet in the morning. Can't believe how much you miss all they do and all they did. You want all the dreams they dream of to come true, and they do. And they do.
That song's hard to listen to. Thinking how many times that I was in a day and wishing the day would end. And it did, didn't it? Just reminds you how important it is to love the people in your life. You're not going to negotiate anything perfectly, but you can keep your heart open to people and enjoy. I picked up my oldest granddaughter. She'll be 7 in a month. Picked her up from first grade. It was the 100th day of school. She saw me from about here to the exit sign. just started running to me. What do you think? Because I know someday she won't run. So it's important to be in those moments, you know, and living and connecting. This is how God meant us to live. And he meant us to live these in the midst of a lot of the disappointments of our life as well, when things are not going well. That's why I've loved this series. It's this 2-week little series, Mosaic, because it's a perfect way to express what relationships are. It's broken pieces that fit together and come together. I was thinking of the definition: a collection of seemingly unrelated and diverse pieces that, when assembled in a particular manner, are able to create something beautiful. And today we're talking about blended families, but you know what I'm really talking about? I'm really talking about Jesus' church. Because this is what he does. I was just in Kenya 2 weeks ago, and Julius Murgor and I were visiting one of the 130 brand new churches that we've helped start in West Pokot alone in the last 9 months. And we drove to a river and took my shoes off and walked across ankle-deep water, 400-yard wide river. It's been the rainy season. Normally it's just sand. And Murgor didn't want to take his shoes off, so he goes plunging over in his, because he's always, you know, he's like Elvis when he shows up in any village, and he goes running across in his leather loafers. And I got him on video laughing, yelling at him as he's running across. And then we walk 1.5 miles to a church that's in the middle of nowhere, and this young man, John, who's the pastor, is like, yeah, we're going to start a church in this village to the north, and there's one right here in the northeast, and there's one right here at the bottom of the mountains where there's still lots of leopards, and they come in and they eat all their livestock in the nights. And there's a church here, and there's a church here. And I thought, that's what I get to be a part of. That's what we're a part of. And we're part of this huge, diverse menagerie of people that God brought together as his church. We are his mosaic. Isn't that awesome? Now, if you're part of a blended family, you're part of an incredible image of what the church looks like. That's what a blended family is. A family can be defined in so many different ways, but what we're talking about is when God takes one or both spouses in a family and often brings children with them from a previous marriage or relationship, and they come together, and it's crazy, hard. Any blended families want to acknowledge that? I mean, yeah, this is real. I mean, family alone is hard enough, and I've been, all those of you that know me know I've been honest with my life and our family and struggles in my marriage and my kids, and gosh, it's so much harder than I ever thought it would be. And I got to tell you though, there are the moments where it's so much better than you thought it could be. So you live this crazy roller coaster. But there is a complexity to blended families that is the most powerful picture of what the Church of Jesus Christ looks like. And when people say, Steve, what is your image of Kensington after we're in our 30th year? We'll be 30 years this coming September as a church. People said, what is your image of all that? I said, it's like God put me on the island of misfit toys. And I love it. It's the greatest island in the world. And I just love the fact it's all unlikely people. Chris Arbaugh, a lot of you hugged him in the lobby probably, but we've been having breakfast just about every week. And, you know, one of the things that marks the love that we have for each other is the fact that our lives are so incredibly different of where we came from. Everything that he experienced, I experienced the total opposite. And yet God was preparing us together and bringing these two misfit toys together, right? And you, and all of us together. This is what God does. And I thought, here's what's really cool. Some of you don't know this. Jesus' church is first and foremost described as an adopted family. Did you know that? It's a family where people get brought in. Galatians 4, Paul, the Apostle Paul, one of the great church leaders of the early church, said when the time came, God sent his son, born of a woman. You've heard me read this before. We've shared this many times. But God sent him, subject to the law. God sent him to buy freedom for us who were slaves to the law, so that he could adopt us as his very own children. In other words, the law was this impossible standard that wasn't ever going to get us in God's family. So what did God do? He came and lived perfection. He lived and matched the law so that he could take our place and then welcome us into his family. As his very own children. You see that? And because we are his children, God spent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, prompting us to call out, Abba, Father. Now, a lot of you, you're listening to that and you're thinking, gosh, what does that mean? Here's what I want you to know. Of all the religions in the world, there's no world religion except people who follow Jesus who call God Daddy. None. Anywhere. None. There's no such thing. God's very, very rare instances, God might be Father, but usually God's almighty or unknowable, all-powerful, right? But Daddy? The word Abba is the Aramaic, was the common street language of Jesus' time, and Abba is what your 1-year-old baby called you if you were his daddy, or Amma if you were his mama. It's the first words a baby learns, Abba, Amma. That's how much you need to know to be in a relationship with Jesus Christ. You don't have to have a college degree or have your life together. You can be in a complete wreck of a person. You just go, Daddy, Mama, this is God that's come close to me in Jesus Christ. Abba, Father. So when you see those words, I want you to recognize that in Galatians and in Romans 8, it is unique in all the world. Abba, Father. In other words, the feelings you have to your mom and your dad are exactly the feelings that God wants you to have towards him. When you're a little 1-year-old, you're totally dependent. So it goes on, you're no longer a slave, but God's own child. And since you're his child, God has made you his heir, his inheritor. You inherit everything God has is ours. Now, you guys, a lot of you know the Kaleo Kids program. My granddaughter's in one with the Birmingham campus in a Pontiac elementary school. And I was there the other night dropping her off, and they were singing the song that we often sing it, which is, you're no longer a slave to sin, but you are a child of God. Say, I am a child of God. And I have a video of her singing that, holding 2 other little girls in this thing, and her eyes are closed. She's singing, I am a child of God. She knows that there's an intimacy that Jesus Christ invites us into. And you know that in the blended family, it's the same thing. Everybody gets adopted in, right? There's people in a blended family who are always saying, hey, I didn't ask for this. I didn't buy into this. Well, that's why it's such a picture of the church. The church is also described as an incredibly diverse family. In Galatians 3:26, you can read it, but I just want you to know that Jesus came and destroyed every ethnic barrier. He destroyed every socioeconomic barrier. He described gender barriers. We're all one in Christ Jesus. And so if you're in a blended family, I want you to know today that you're my hero, that you're doing something that is a picture of the image of what the church can be. It also talks about the difficulty of what the church is. And I want you to know that God could do something amazing through your family, even through the difficulties. So for you to have an image of what a blended family, the complexity of it, I want you to look at this. 2 minutes, just take a peek.
Our story begins when this guy met this girl and fell madly in love. First came love, then came marriage. Then came Emily, Michael, and John in a baby carriage. They were living the dream until doubt and isolation tore love apart. One love and one home became 2. In another part of the world, a loving marriage welcomed 2 beautiful children. Life and love for this couple went along as they hoped, and they too were living the dream. Until Mom became ill. Bad became worse, and worse ended the dream. Courageously, Dad strove to pick up the pieces and help his grieving children carry on. And together, they did. Until one day when this lady met this fellow. Wait, where have I heard that before? Oh well. One thing led to another, and a new dream for a new home was born. Yes, they knew there would be challenges merging homes, extended families, parenting strategies, finances, loss experiences, and holiday traditions, but they were confident that love would see them through. With hearts full of hope, they married. In the meantime, this guy, remember him? Announced that he and his girlfriend were getting married. They too had a dream for a new home. Okay, let's recap, shall we? What started out as 2 simple homes with 4 parents and 5 kids became 3 homes with 3 parents and 5 kids. And then became 2 homes with 2 parents, 2 step-parents, 5 children, 5 stepchildren, and the living memory of a deceased mother. And 5 sets of grandparents, dozens of cousins, uncles, and aunts, colliding family traditions, kids with divided loyalties, a home with 5 children on some days and only 2 the next, 2 bedtimes, differing parenting styles, conflict between homes, debt from the past, questions about whether this marriage will last, and 4 adults who quickly realize that their simple dream to recreate their dream home has instead created a multi-household family that is not simple at all, but complex. Love and hope has brought these families together, but how do they manage the complexity? And how do they make the dream reality?
Oh, man. Okay, what do you think? Is that true? Yeah. Oh, wow. Holy smokes. That is life, man. And I think not just in families, but in organizations. You know, when I was starting Kensington, I had 13 people in a core group, and we couldn't agree on anything. Now there's like 15,000 of us, you know, or 50,000 of us. So, I mean, it's just crazy how life works. But in the blended family, there's the added emotion of loss and gain, security, insecurity. And so what is part of God's answer and how to negotiate that at the most fundamental level? What is some encouragement for blended families? And I'll tell you, that's what I'm saying one more time. Everything I'm saying to you was great encouragement to me in the years that we struggled as a normal family, which whatever that was. So, the first one is this. I want you can take some screenshots to remember this, but I really believe that God gives every one of his families patience. I think patience is a powerful and a lost message to the world. We live in an age of instant things, but there's something about patience that's more powerful than many other things in our lives. Ephesians says it this way: always be humble and gentle, be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Paul and I have been married 39 years, and one of the things that I love that's different than 9 years ago or 29 years ago is we finally reached a place where we make allowances for each other's faults, where we finally stopped correcting each other, stopped trying to fix each other. Now we only do it twice a day. But you know, you start to make allowance for the other person. You start to let them off the hook. I'm telling you, there's a freedom and so much better way to live. But somehow we're stuck thinking we got to change everybody or get everything to work out for our own happiness. And I think, again, that's why it's important to work for purpose and for meaning, but not necessarily for happiness. It's more powerful and more enduring to work for things that have eternal purpose and meaning. Happiness, comes and goes. It's great when it's there. It's not great when it's not. When it comes to blended families, Patricia Peppernow wrote a book called Becoming a Step Family. You can look that up if you want to read it. But in her research, she discovered that it takes the average step family 7 years to integrate sufficiently to experience intimacy and authenticity in their relationships. 7 years. Wow. But here's, you know what's funny about that? I was told that any marriage takes 7 years to begin to be married. And for Paul and I, it took 13 years because I was a fast learner. I really think it took us 13 years to really be married. And almost all of it was my fault. But so don't be surprised if it takes a long time. Why wouldn't it take time to integrate sufficiently? We all come from different worlds and different families of origin, different experiences. She writes in this book, fast families can accomplish this integration in 4 years if the children are young and the adults are intentional about bringing their family together. However, slow families can take 9 or more years. And she says, in my experience, Very few adults come to their step family believing it will take this long. Oh, we'll be the exception. Yeah, good luck. They want a quick, painless blending process. And does that ever work? Never. Never that I've seen. Ron Deal is another writer about step families. He writes the book, The Smart Step Family. It's a great book. Dave and Ann Wilson interviewed them on Family Life Today radio a couple months ago, and Dave's trying to get Ron to come to Kensington to do some step family conference. So we'll see if that comes in the future. But he says the best method for step families is crock-pot cooking. Crock-pots work on two factors. What are they? Say it out loud. Time and low heat. How many step families you know that ever have a problem with high heat? Right? You end up marrying and you marry this other person. You realize you both have kids and you both have totally different true philosophies of discipline and parenting. And all of a sudden the heat's unbearable. Unbearable. These are the things that take time. That's why it says be patient. Make allowance for each other's faults. There's creating a house of grace. Because in the crock pot, we take all the ingredients and throw them into the pot. That's called the wedding day. And you have some potatoes and some carrots and some celery and some onions. And they're all on different sides on top of each other. And in a crock pot, though, you don't stir everything together and force it to be connected. You let it simmer on low, low heat. And over time, what happens? The ingredients begin to soften. Think soften first. Yeah, they do blend, but it really comes after the softening. So people become tender to each other. And again, I was just thinking, my daughter, Lindy, she's pregnant with her third child, be our sixth grandchild, coming anytime. And I should have checked my phone between services. But when she was about 9 or 10, she decided she didn't like me, which I don't understand because I was pretty much father of the century. And gosh, it broke my heart. And there were literally 6 or 7 years that she wouldn't even let me hug her. It was terrible. And we grew up in a family, everybody kissed and hugged everybody, And so I thought, what am I going to do? And so when I would often walk through the room, she'd be at the kitchen table after school. She was real responsible doing her homework. Sometime I would often walk by. I do this every day, and I'd just touch her on the shoulder for about that long. I'd just say, hi, honey, how are you? Pat her shoulder and walk by. That's it. That's sad. But if that's all you got, you got to let it cook. And then it softens. And I remember when I was driving her to college, we sat in the front seat of the car. She was 18 by then. She was going to Wheaton College. And we were in our minivan, all 6 of us. And she put in James Taylor, which I'd always loved. Sweet Baby James album. Put that in, and she reached over and took my hand and held my hand for like 5 hours on the drive to Chicago. And I was like, I'm not looking at her. I'm going to go on the road and kill myself, But all of you know that feeling when hope returns, right? And love and warmth and kindness, and holding her hand on that drive was one of the best memories of my whole life. But in a blended family especially, after 6 or 7 hours, you talk about this crock pot, everything is soft except for the carrots. And every blended family has carrots. Those darn carrots. Often it's a teenage kid or someone, and it's like, you think you're going to soften me up? Not a chance. I'm going to show you. And so, but even the carrots need time, and even eventually over time, the carrots will respond. And it has nothing to do being good or bad. It's just part of the challenge along the way. So patience. And by the way, as I was thinking about this, for Christmas, my niece and nephew gave us an Instapot. Now that's the family I want. I want the Instapot family. It takes 20 minutes, but unfortunately in relationships, it doesn't work. And you know what? I don't care how good the Instapot is. We've tried about 20 recipes. It's not as good as a crock pot, but it's a lot more convenient. We live in a convenient world, but God says, no, crock pot's where it's at, okay? Secondly, God gives his family perseverance. I believe no matter how discouraged and weary, God gives you the ability, gives us the ability by the love and the power of his Holy Spirit to take the next step, to keep going. Because there's something amazing at the end. Galatians goes, and Paul continues, he says, don't become weary in doing good. For at the proper time, you'll reap a harvest if you don't give up. I knocked on thousands of doors to start this dumb church, and nobody came from it. Bunch of jerks. Any of you remember me 30 years ago at your door? Hey, you want to be a part of my church? Man, I wanted to give up every day, and fortunately, I was married to a woman who was like, hey, put your big boy pants on. Yeah, thank you, honey. Thank you for your compassion in this moment. You know, but it's like, keep going. Don't give up. And the reward of the harvest is unbelievable. I thought walking to that church in the middle of nowhere, West Pokot, Northwest Kenya, if that's the only thing God did in 30 years, I've been worth my life a million times over. God's let me experience that thousands of times. It's incredible when you don't give up. Ron Deal says it this way. Says there's the step family promised land of marital intimacy, interpersonal connectedness, and spiritual redemption. Some of you take a screenshot of this. He says, God has not abandoned you. If you'll listen, trust, and continue walking by faith, you'll hear him confirming your journey, offering guidance and healing, and providing a way forward. But you must trust him. Don't be like most remarried couples who end their journey in divorce within the first 3 years. They quit before ever crossing the sea of opposition. Isn't that a great word? It's real, isn't it? Or finding the rewards on the other side. God beckons you to remain persistent and see your family through to the promised land. There's a reward to be gained, but you must hold God's hand and walk through. Isn't that amazing? You know, think of all the things in your life. Did anything great come in your life without perseverance? No. How do you think I got this body? That's so dumb. I'm sorry. But you see people that are really strong, and you go, did they just get that? No, they worked at it. They went after it. You know, I love the fact, now that I'm a grandparent, so, you know, what is, you know, being a grandparent is the reward for not killing your children. You remember that? You persevere during the dark times, you know, when you can't stand your kids and they can't stand you. And I've told you that. You've heard that from me all the time. My kids, every one of them like, I can't wait to get out of this house. And I'm like, well, I never said it out loud, but in my heart, I was always saying, well, I can't wait for you to get out. You know, in Christian love. But you keep going, you keep persevering. And and you've heard me say this too. And when you're reconciled after being broken, and you really experience forgiveness with other people who've been angry at you, and it's a mutual coming together, oh my word, with my kids, with my Paula, with plenty of people here, just when you do experience out of the pain, out of the hurt, you're reconnected. It's an amazing thing. It's powerful, and the reward is infinitely beautiful. Well, I want to bring Tracy Hinkle out to do this last point because she's much more equipped to talk about this last part about the people that God brings when you're in a blended family. Tracy Hinkle, give her a big hand. And the ushers, I'm going to have the ushers come forward. And the best thing that I have always loved about Kensington is God brought normal people. Just everybody. Bunch of normal people, and some abnormal. And A lot of us are goofy, but God brought together just a bunch of people, and together we are really powerful sometimes. Amen. In a way that we could never be alone. And Tracy, you brought an incredible power and joy. Yeah, you just literally, you're one image of God's faithfulness to me and to the movement of Christ here. And you do great. And you and Jim you guys are rock stars in terms of the way you love people and care about people. You're the living example of this message to me. So, Tracy Hinkle.
Steve. Well, I gotta say, this is such an honor. Like, I'm sitting here co-teaching with Steve Andrews. You know, when I came to Kensington, he's the pastor that I was taught under, and it changed my life in the course of my life. So much fun to be here today.
Got you?
Yeah, it's how tall you are, Steve. I just look up to you naturally.
By the way, do you guys know what Tracy had a special stool made for her? So her feet hit. So.
That's otherwise. We're getting slap happy in the last service.
Okay, third service, who cares? It's extra bonus. Okay.
Well, I'm really passionate about this topic of blended families, and you talked about patience and perseverance. And, you know, I have found myself in a blended family, and it's certainly not a place that I would have chosen. It's not where I thought that my life was going to go. And there's a lot of shame and a lot of regret that can be associated with being in a blended family. And yet, I know now that God isn't ashamed. He's not ashamed of us and our family at all. And I know that when Jim and I invite God into our families, it's a completely different story. But we didn't learn that on our own. And the third point that we want to talk about, we talk about patience and perseverance, but also as people. God gives us people to do this journey with, because often when we're in the trenches and we're doing the hard things like blended family, we can't really hear from God. We're just so bogged down. We need people to come alongside us. And I love this verse in Galatians 6:2.
Oh, beautiful.
It says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. And what he's really saying here is we're going to have burdens to carry, and they're going to feel really, really heavy. And right at that moment when you feel like, I just can't do this anymore, I'm going to drop this burden, God's going to send someone alongside to help you carry your burden. And that's what we want to be here at Kensington to our blended families, especially we're highlighting them today. We talk about family, we talk about marriage, relationships, but today we're talking about blended families. And I didn't know, Jim and I, we didn't know what we didn't know. And I grew up in a blended family, and I was in a fairly good blended family situation, actually, but being married and having my own, we didn't really know what we didn't know, so we started seeking help and knowledge. And really the way that turned out was we joined a workshop that we have here at Kensington, Blended Family Workshop. And Steve, you talked about the crock pot analogy and with the carrot, but I had the blender mentality. You know, I thought we love each other, like they showed you in the video, and that's enough. And our kids were older, and so we didn't really associate that as being a blended family. But people, if you have older kids and you're still in a blended family, you're still trying to make decisions about and for one another, about each other's children, and it's hard. It's really hard work. But we went to this course and learned about the crock pot with the carrot, and it was kind of an aha moment, because we have a carrot in our family. And Steve mentioned just one, luckily, out of 5. My bonus kids were not the carrots. That was really lucky. We call them bonus kids. Not
it was
really
your daughter, who was kind of the perfect one of the whole bunch.
My daughter
She's
was
like the best of the bunch.
Right.
I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing you mentioned, I think, that it takes 7 years for a blended family to really blend. And I know that when we started out 7 years ago, we're in year 7, I would have never believed that. I would have thought love is enough. I would have thought we'll figure this out. Mm-hmm. And this is the first year that our carrot, I'm not going to name her, but our carrot said, I feel comfortable. I don't feel agitated so much. I feel, you know, she often said, Jim's a great guy if I wanted a stepfather. And so those are hard things. Yeah. And yet we got this course, and we got some knowledge, and we got some understanding about the complexity. And there's a couple that we're going to show you a video right now, the Rushings and the Jacobsons, and they are an example of patience and perseverance and people. So watch this, and we'll talk a little bit more.
In this video, it was the dream when we started this church years ago that we would be a place where people would be honest. Like people would be no masks, just telling their story. And this is a perfect example. Yeah. Okay.
I was leading divorce recovery at the time, and Renee came into the program.
We really ended up becoming friends when we ended up in a Bible study shortly after that together.
I noticed her, and then we got to know each other in the group, how you do the introductions. And she says, I have 4 children. And I said, well, I have 4 children, so there was no way I was ever gonna date this gal. So it just kicked off a friendship.
So that was for about a year that we ended up just kind of hanging out in a group, and then we were spending a lot of time together one-on-one. And I think it was me that finally said, are we dating?
We were always just over at their house or doing stuff together, activities together, and I didn't understand. And I was just like, what? There's a little more to this than...
Yeah, they're hanging out a lot. Something's up here.
And I was a little older at the time when they started hanging out, and so I think maybe I could tell what was happening a little faster than everyone else. And I'm like, my dad has a crush on this lady. I can tell because he'd get all nervous when he was around her.
Well, we've always told Dad every time we went out, you're gonna go get us a new stepmama. So we were ready for him to meet someone, and we really liked Renee when we first met her.
I don't remember getting any pushback from any of them. The pushback didn't come until we announced the engagement. That's when things kind of changed.
It's like, why is this happening? It's like, I gotta move again. I'm like, now we're gonna go into a new house.
Felt like we didn't have a choice in it. We were just thrown in it. And it was just kind of like, hey, this is happening, deal with it.
But again, we have to remember that our kids are a year or 2 behind where we are. We had fallen in love. We were good. It was our kids that had to get used to that idea and kind of realize that they were becoming a family too.
Me and him and our other little brother Joey, who moved in with us, we were all just like not for it, and just kind of like we didn't like them. We didn't like Mike. We didn't want to deal with it. We didn't want to switch schools. You know, at the same time, also, I love my mom and I trust my mom, so I knew she's not going to bring me to a house where I'm going to be miserable at all the time.
I think I expected it to be a little bit easier, just because they were already friends and they all got along so well. I wasn't expecting the challenges that really hit us.
I wasn't used to having a woman in the house as like a mother figure, because I had a single dad for so long. So having this woman come in and put all her toiletries in my bathroom and move all my stuff around, and kind of felt like things were happening without my permission or without my consideration. So at the beginning, like, it was really hard.
The biggest conflict I saw was that my dad parented very differently than Renee parented. But Renee is so soft and so gentle and so nurturing and caring, and that's how she raised her boys. And I know Renee would like wake up everyone for school in the morning, and the way she would wake up everyone for school is she would go and she'd be like, hey, bud, time to wake up. You're so beautiful and you're so smart and you're pretty and everyone's great, and let's go start the day. And my dad, the way we woke up every morning was he would have pots and pans, and he would just go through the house with pots and pans as loud as he could. And so I think the boys like hated my dad for that for a while. It was just like, you're not nice.
Even though I was happy for my mom, at the same time, I was just like, this dude's not my dad. I'm not, I don't want him to try to be my dad, and it felt like he was. It just made everyone upset and just everyone on edge.
It was probably three years into our marriage, and I told Mike, I said, I'm going to move out. When the kids graduate, we'll do this again. I can't do this anymore, and it's ripping him apart from his kids, me from mine.
I came upstairs, she had a laptop open, and she was looking for places to live in. My heart sank, and I said, I gotta leave. Christ calls me to lead my home. I gotta lead now. And I didn't know what to do. I just rolled over and just began to pray, saying, Lord, give us some answers. I didn't get those answers. I prayed for her, I prayed for us. She got those answers at our women's Bible study.
Just something came over me going, this is the wrong decision. This isn't what God wants for us. This isn't what he intended. And came home and said that I can't do this to our kids. We're trying to build this home. We're trying to show them stability. We're trying to show them a Christian family, marriage, and something that they can hopefully mimic later in life and not end up in this situation as a blended family to begin with.
It wasn't, but except through Blended Family Workshop, that I was able to open my eyes to some of the things that I needed to really focus on. And I prayed that God would give me some wisdom, and he delivered an individual in that group. Daryl Kress was a gentleman that came into my life and said, I think you might want to try this. You might need to throw your son out. The relationship between he and Renee was, it was crescendoing to probably get into probably violent.
You don't ever want to put your spouse in a position that they have to choose between you or their child.
I had to be the man in my home, and I'm going to protect my wife. I told her that's what I was going to do. When we got married, never thought I'd have to protect my wife from our internal family. Daryl was very, he led me all the way through this, and I'm very thankful for his wisdom and guidance. There were some apologies that were made. He found Christ. He came home. I got a chance to baptize him, and the relationship that he has now with her is only because of God.
When we all got into high school, I think that's when it started to, like, blend, and we started to get along.
Started to get fun.
And we also started to gang up on our parents.
We get stories now as they get older about things that they used to do together to behind our backs, and, you know, how they were kind of like little gang members.
I think we got to know each other way better, and we got to know each other's personalities and everyone's quirks. I think it just takes time. It's not something that happens in the snap of a finger.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, 2-3 years of living together before we really felt like this is our family.
I also feel like that was the time where we started to call each other like, oh, this is my brother, this is my sister, instead of this is my stepbrother, this is my stepsister. My advice for parents that are blending would just be persistent and be patient, because the kids will come around. It'll work out, and if you set the example and you put God first in your life, it's gonna work out. They put God at the center of their relationship, and it's so evident in our family today.
Lower your expectations, because I think you go in thinking that you're gonna have this perfect family, and things are just gonna work out great because you're in love, and that's what's gonna happen.
If I knew how close we'd all be now, it would have been so much easier back then.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Not only do I have a better relationship with my family, but my stepfather has pushed me to have a better relationship with God.
You're gonna wanna quit. It's a normal reaction. You're gonna wanna go back to what you know, what was comfortable. I'll tell you to push through those are hurdles. Get as much help as you can. But God has been faithful. He's taught me so much. He's brought people into my life when I needed the wisdom, and I'm very thankful.
You know, God can make a family out of all of this, then he can make a family out of anybody, because we came from completely different personalities and backgrounds and different struggles and different messes, but yet it now 10 years later, you're looking at it and it like blends perfectly.
Oh
my gosh.
Oh, that's so good. Honestly, wasn't ready for that picture at the end every time.
It's like
because
a small army.
They're just so honest. It was the honesty that was of how difficult the journey was.
I think there are so many really tender moments that, I didn't cry the last 2 services. Really tender moments that I really just hope you all pick up on. Like one of the first things he said, did you catch that they were married 10 years? Okay, and they said, push through this. But people came alongside them, and God gave them wisdom. That's what we're advocating here for, is that when you go to these blended family workshops and you learn and understand the complexities that were in that video, you are equipped to navigate those things better. You are equipped to invite God into those moments. Instead of just saying, it's just a mess, I guess I'm going to give up. Or, God, help me with this mess. It can be more specific about, God, help me in this relationship. Or I need clarity here. Or I need clarity there. Does that make sense? Because it doesn't just feel overwhelming, right? And so, it says in the Bible, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives to all abundantly. And that's what Mike did. He said, I need wisdom, and God sent people to come alongside them. And he made a really tough choice. like that. He said, I have to put my wife first, because that's what God calls us to do. It's God, spouse, children. But I'll tell you, in a blended family, it's like, I feel like a balancing act of God, spouse, children, Jim kids. And yet I know he has to be first, but it's so hard. But look what happened when they followed through with it. You wouldn't think that in the moment. Oh my gosh, he's asking his son to move out. And yet, as a result, because he was faithful in what probably felt awful and he didn't understand, he came to know Christ and came back and they're restored. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And you know, it's interesting when you think of just any marriage. If you want your marriage to be strong, you've got to put your spouse above your own children. And a lot of us don't do that.
No, we don't.
Because it ends up, but it's the greatest gift you can give to them. It's funny, I was thinking about this, of how you were talking about practical steps. One of our daughters had come back from a year abroad, and she was back in her house, and her hours were really, really late at night, and she'd always push back. And Jack Wilson was mentoring me, and he said, I said, I don't know what to do, man, because every time I say something, she's mad about it and angry about it. He says, well, why don't you talk to her as her landlord instead of as her father? And that was a turning point in our life. I went to her and I said, honey, we love having you in this house, but everybody in the house all week long, including Sunday and Saturday, is up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And when you come in at 1 or 2, it wakes everybody up. So we've talked. It's a compromise. It's still not ideal, but we need you to be in by midnight. Sunday night through Thursday night, and Friday and Saturday night by 1 a.m. And I said, I love you. I'm not saying this is your father. I'm saying this is your landlord. If this is not acceptable to you, take the next 6 weeks and find a place somewhere else to stay. We'd love for you to be here, but if you can't do this curfew for the rest of our health, then you probably need to go. And literally every moment in our life we'd ever had a conversation like this, it had dissolved into just a really bad confrontation. And she was like, okay, Dad, I could do that. And I was like, who are you? What have you done with my daughter?
And I think sometimes we think that only happens in blended families, but it's great to know it happens in all families.
I would have never thought to talk to her as a landlord.
Sometimes it's just teenager. It's just being a teenager.
Yeah. So these are the kind of practical things. You do the workshop and you get it with other people. Or like Daryl Kress, walking him through this process with his rebellious son, which that's a pretty tough moment.
That was a tough moment.
So,
keep
going. I keep interrupting you. Keep going. You're doing great.
I just want to encourage you that we have an opportunity to change.
Sorry. It's third service.
Change. You're taking the wind out of my sail. We have an opportunity to change our legacy. And what Steve said about putting your marriage first, whether you're in a blended family or not, when the kids sat on there, we saw them model to us what that means. And I'm from a blended family. I didn't even realize it was until I was in one myself. That's kind of a new word. I don't want that for my kids, though. I mean, I know that people feel shame and regret being part of a blended family, but God doesn't feel that way about it. But he does want us to invite us wholly into it, into every moment of it, so that we can change our legacy. And one of the best gifts that I think Jim and I can give to our kids is that they see us living a Christ-centered marriage, which means we do put each other first, even when it's hard. We have those discussions that are difficult. We call it DK, darn kids. We might not say darn sometimes, but they have to be had. There has to be communication. And then we pray before we go into those conversations. We pray after we're done trying to make decisions, and it makes a difference. Yeah. Jesus wants to be in the middle of these blended families as much as anybody else's family. And I want to encourage you, if you're not in a blended family, you know someone. You're a grandparent, an aunt, a friend to somebody. And if you can understand these dynamics, then you can encourage them differently. Mm-hmm. I know one of the hardest things for mine was my family was like, to my daughter, don't you want your mom to be happy? Well, she does, but she couldn't even understand what her own struggle was. Of course not. And the kids talked about, well, you move and blend families, and then she put my toiletries in. Well, my daughter was stronger than that. She took his sink. We have 2 sinks, and she and I always were in the right-hand sink. I get married, her stuff's over in front of Jim's stuff. Just these little things, they don't even know why they're doing them. But if we can just have compassion and patience and perseverance, we can make a difference. And prayer. I mean, prayer is just so important in this. I want to change my legacy. I bet you many of you do too, and we want to encourage you to get some help with it.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for your leadership, you and Jim, both of you. I'm going to go give him a hug in the lobby, but you guys, and to you blended families, you're representing the Church of Jesus Christ. It's his broken, flawed community. And I learned this early on. He doesn't use perfect people. Nope. He uses people that have struggled and have fallen and who are recreating new legacies by the power of his Spirit, because the resurrected Jesus does that. And as we finish, we thought it'd be a great way to end the day by celebrating the Lord's Supper, the communion, the bread, and the cup. Because here's the cool thing. Think about this. Jesus grew up with a stepdad. Joseph had to be odd, probably all the weird family dynamics. But then he had his disciples. He had the men and the women that followed him, the 70 and the 120. And when he went to the cross, what happened to everybody? Do you remember what happened to everybody? Gone. Scattered. Nobody he could depend on. Judas betrayed him. Peter denied him. All the rest ran for their lives. And when we come to the bread and the cup, this is what I want you to remember. Jesus knew this was going to happen. And he said to his disciples, I have eagerly desired to share this meal with you before I suffer. He knew his family was messed up. He knew his family was going to fail. Didn't matter. He said, I love you, and I'm going to do this for you. And this bread represents my body, which is going to be given for you. It's going to be hurt. I'm going to be torn apart. This cup represents my blood poured out for you, and I'm going to die. I'm going to rise again from the dead. I'm going to give you life. And here's the coolest part. Think about legacy. Do you remember these disciples? You remember Judas because he went and hung himself, but the other 11, do you remember their legacy as being running when Jesus was? Is their legacy bailing on Jesus? Is that their legacy? Answer me aloud. No. Their legacy is they came back and they believed and they started a new life and they ended up giving their life for the resurrected Jesus. It's pretty awesome. And so God is recreating legacies in all of us. And there's no failure that's so fatal and so final that Jesus Christ can't create a new legacy out of that better than anything that was there before. Amen. So let's do that. So let's have the Lord's Supper. Come on. Awesome.
Tell them to hold on to it.
Oh, yeah. Hold on to it. You're going to get the bread and the cup. Hold on. We'll take it together after we've sung. This new song is beautiful because it's really about this. It's about Jesus do a new thing in my life.
In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I have surrendered, you are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your care for me. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. So make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. Oh, I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring me wine.
This week I had my 6-year-old grandson. You know, I was talking about my granddaughter running towards me. Well, I had spent the day with him, took him swimming. We went to the skywalk at Troy Somerset and let him run up and all this crazy. When it came time to go, I did something that made him mad. He hauled off and kicked me in the shin. And I said, I'm having a hard time loving you right now. I didn't say that. But I thought, I'm going to try to jump out of the way next time he kicks. Unfortunately, he's faster and quicker than me already. But you know what we did afterwards? We went to Wendy's, had a Frosty and a cheeseburger. That was his punishment. I was going to take him to, so my point is, he can kick me in the shin as many times as he wants. It's not going to change my love for him. Now, I don't know what's going to be in his life, but I tell you what, the love of Jesus Christ is never going to leave you, no matter how many times you kick him in the shins. And I was thinking about this day and about blended families when it talks about the gospel, that Jesus says, even when we were his enemies, Christ died for us. Wow. He's like, I want to eat this meal with you, love you. So as you take it, I want you to see the resurrected Jesus who gives hope and life and freedom like no other person could ever imagine. And to say he's creating new legacies in all of us, and he is making us one, the island of misfit toys, for the whole world, made up of every ethnicity and language, because Jesus is alive, he's king, and he did it by giving his life for us. So let's take it together. Thank you, Lord. Love you. I feel such incredible gratitude. I'm thankful for each family here, each struggling person, each of them infinitely precious to you. You'd gone to the cross for any of us because you loved us with an everlasting love. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's beautiful.
Wow.
I love those verses that say, I'm not embarrassed and I'm not ashamed. God is not embarrassed. He's not ashamed. You are in blended families. You are not in broken families. And we just want to come alongside you. We want to encourage you to be patient. We want to encourage you to persevere and not give up. We want to encourage you to find people, which we are here for you. We've got workshops starting March 1st. We've got a video cast on May 2nd. We just want to be a help to you to understand your families, especially your blended families. So come back next week for our A Blessed Life new series.
Awesome.
Prayer
Blessed
team will
Life.
be down front. Best thing you can do is pray for your families. Thanks, Steve. It was a great day.
Great.